Hey folks, yes, on a chat about regenerative farming, land supply, jobs, and metabolic health. Now, one wouldn't think that they all can get tied together, but one thing that we've seen with all this COVID nonsense is that government's economic recovery plan is inextricably linked to climate change and COVID. So for years I've sat back and I'm not a big fan of man-made climate change. I think it's bollocks personally. But I've spent the time to sit and do some research and to go through these things, and I thought, well, let me try and beat them at their own game. And we know everything is about mass farming and centralization of power, and everything's about corporations. So there's a thing called regenerative farming, and regenerative farming methods is actually being punted now in terms of climate change. So the more you use regenerative farming, the more you sequester carbon dioxide back into the soil. There's a lot of other more positive spin-offs about that. Is you get a better soil quality, you get a better crop quality. There's more nutrients in that grass and those crops. The cattle raised on them get more nutrients into them. In turn, we, by consuming those cattle, get the multitude of high-level nutrients, macronutrients, all the good stuff into our body. Factory farmed animals, not so much. They're grain fed, they're full of antibiotics, they cause a lot of inflammation. And I think it's the quality of the food we eat, or let's say the poor quality of the food that we eat in our current civilization, Western world, that accounts for a lot of the metabolic disorders, a lot of the metabolic diseases, a lot of the illness, the type 2 diabetes, etc. Now, that links straight into COVID, in that they found that up to 78 people out of every 10 who've suffered terribly under COVID have had a very, very or severe shortages or levels of vitamin D3. Now, that's outside sunlight, that's also healthy eating. A lot of the metabolic injuries and diseases are also based on what the food we eat. A lot of the cardiovascular diseases are because we're eating a lot of foods that aren't high in vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is essential for healthy cardiovascular fitness or health. It pulls all the calcium out your organs and out your bloodstream and out your arteries and puts them in the bones and the teeth. I'm just also surface level. We can drill down deeper if people buy into this, and maybe we can get a traction going. So if we got everything that we have in the country, and also unemployment now, and this need for land, so instead of our government's current policies where we're looking to push everyone to smart cities and smart this and smart that, and there's a huge push by let's say mega corporations to have synthetic foods and supply the world with synthetic foods. And as far as I'm concerned, they're high in oils, they're high in soy, they're high in all the things that are bad for you and cause inflammation. So we need to get back to whole eating, whole foods, and grass-fed beef. So why don't we sit down, and as a country, we've got lots of land. We have it, and people are crying out for land. They're crying out to be empowered. They're crying out for a sense of agency. Why don't we sit down and start teaching our people about regenerative farming, and then we can set up farms, and we can allow people to have their own agency. They've got their own land. They can make their own food. They can have their own crops and vegetables. They've got their own cattle. This food that they eat, because teaching them the regenerative farming process, the food that they eat is sustainable. It's very healthy. The meat is high in grass-fed beef. It's high in K2. And then people will start taking care of themselves, and they've got their own land. So everyone suddenly becomes sustainable in their own right. So we aren't going to have a United Nations sustainability operation where they're going to corporatize everything and you have to your sustainability relies on someone else. Let's give people the independence. Sustainability is independence. Let's give them the land. We give them that. Then they can feed themselves. They can feed their children. And then with any overflow that they have, they've got the agency now to go and sell that somewhere at a market. And then they can start generating profits for themselves. So not only are we going to be increasing the health of people, their metabolic health, we're going to be giving them land. We're going to sense of agency. Human humankind need agency. They need to be self-sustaining. And then for the people that are in it that want to get a little bit more, they can go and sell their stuff at the local markets. By doing that, we create little clusters or little economic hubs all over the place. And then they can start trading with each other and bartering with each other, wherever it might be. And then we've got this upliftment of the people. And suddenly the healthcare strain on the system gets alleviated because we aren't eating crap. People are eating decent foods, they're eating healthy foods. And then suddenly our healthcare system should also settle down. We won't have all these other preventable illnesses. In terms of our COVID, suddenly all these metabolic issues, because remember, it's the very old or the people who have underlying health conditions. Now, we suddenly got a population who are eating well and living well, healthy, outside, in the sun, and that's going to reduce it by a factor of 7 to 8 already, based on what we've seen. So without even giving one pharmaceutical intervention, in time we can pull this out and we can prevent any further viral outbreaks or anything that might come along still. Like I said, it also addresses the climate issue. It's a fundamental key that we seem to be overlooking because our government or governments just focus on sustainable operations sponsored by the UN, and everything there is corporate, and it's the corporatization of the globe. And we know that bigger isn't better, because bigger, it's going to filter down, and we create a socialist state where we have everyone relying on the government, and that's never going to work. It's never going to work, especially in the South African context where we don't have a government that we can rely on, or we don't have a government we can trust, or a government who can manage anything because they just waste all our money or steal all our money. Let's give independence back to the people. And then we can, instead of having it from a top-down scenario, we can have a bottom-up. And then we can work, and this is where maybe smaller political parties might want to come into the mix, is we can start working at having local management, and we push up. And then all we should really have in terms of a political system is an overarching system that enforces constitution. So the constitution, as long as the fundamental aspects of the constitution are being served and met with, from region to region, there should be an allowance for different changes, because not everyone is the same. So a Cape Town hub, a Joburg hub, a Vereeniging hub, a Free State hub, whatever it might be, different people have different requirements, and it's natural for people in terms of tribe to go settle where they feel that they are most involved, or they got most agency, they're the most, it's their tribe, that's where they belong. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone doesn't have to be the same. We're always saying that our constitution accepts and promotes diversity. This allows diversity. So we'll have each person going to stay in areas where they feel accepted. This is their home. Allow it. Jobs, good food, sense of agency, support themselves. They're allowed to earn an income. Healthcare system strain comes away completely. I mean, the benefits of this are, it's enormous. But I need a group of people who are willing to sit down and say, okay, let's see and explore regenerative farming. And that's the initial point. And then let's tie that into land. And the land, let's tie that into education and jobs, because they all knock onto each other. And then from that, we're boosting the economy. And then from that, the healthcare system comes into place. So we have to pick a point on the map and just go, bang, we're going to start here. And maybe we can start a pilot program somewhere. Or we can put together a thesis and say, hey guys, let's start pushing this or promoting this on a bigger scale, because we don't need corporates. We need lots of small micro enterprises where everyone can work together. I'm going to put an email address at the bottom. If anyone's interested, we can possibly get together and see if we can do something with this. I'd appreciate that, guys.